Salutations, Boxing Nation. This is Boxing Digest bringing you boxing review, giving you the results from a selection of last week's fight cards as well as a breakdown of some of the fights. We are your hosts,
I'm Jay Nice.
NYC. Last week, we introduced you to 6 fight cards that we told you to look out for. However, we're bringing you results from 7 because we found a really good fight card on Sunday where they were contending for the
strawweight, the IBF strawweight champion.
The IBF strawweight championship belt for the women's division. But first, let's go over the fight cards that we told you about. The first one that we recommended to you comes from Kissimmee, Florida, and he had 7 bouts. And what can you tell us about this fight card, Jay?
There were 7 bouts. 3 to look out for that I had mentioned previously was Yomar Alamo versus Salvador Briseño, Javier Cintrón versus Coquieto, and Orlando Gonzalez versus Aldimar Silva. To make a long story short, Yomar Alamo wins by unanimous decision. He moves up the ranks on the WBO at the 140-pound. Javier Cintrón also wins a unanimous decision versus Coquieto. And I think I'm pretty sure that the winner now is going to be the mandatory for the super flyweight champion of the WBO. Before this fight, Javier Cintrón was ranked number 3 and Coquieto was ranked number 2. So the winner is definitely the mandatory. And lastly, Orlando Gonzalez, he won a unanimous decision versus Aldimar Silva. Pretty straightforward. There was nothing, there was no back and forth action. Everything was one-sided on all 3 bouts.
So even though this fight card wasn't one of the most interesting fight cards that we've been able to see from Boxeo Telemundo, at least we got the WBO contender for the 115-pound belt, right?
Yeah, super flyweight.
So for the super flyweight, that's exciting to see who's going to be the contender for the super flyweight title. So the next fight card that we told you about was coming from Merseyside in the United Kingdom, and it was televised on Sky TV. The fight card had 11 bouts. What can you tell us about this fight card, Jay? Well, first let's talk about the main event, which wasn't one of your fights to look out for, which was Anthony Fowler versus Brian Rose. What can you tell us about that fight?
Well, Anthony Fowler came out with the victory, so now he's London or United Kingdom.
So their local champion, title, whatever.
Yeah, at middleweight. Like I mentioned last time, I'm not interested in those titles. I'm not at all. Anthony Fowler, to me, he's still a work in progress. Right now, he's 10-1, so he has 10 victories. With 10 victories, I don't think he could be considered a champion yet, but he is really good. He is a work in progress. He is improving. So once he reaches that next level of echelon, then, he'll be taken more seriously. But as of right now, I think he's just going to keep on fighting local competition over there in the UK.
So what can you tell us about the next...
the bouts to look out for that I mentioned last time was Louis Ritson versus Marek Jędrzejewski, right? Louis Ritson knocks out Marek, I'm just going to call him by Marek, in the 3rd round by TKO, and now he moves up in the rankings for the WBA at 140 pounds. Regis Prograis, that's who's the champion there. We'll see how much Louis Ritson rises if he actually goes all the way up and faces for a world title.
So the other fight that you said that we should be looking out for in the fight card was also in 140 pounds and also for WBA ranking, and it was Robbie Davis versus Michael Dufek.
Yes.
What can you tell us about that fight?
Robbie Davis Jr., he wins also by a 3rd round TKO in the 3rd round versus Dufek. But the thing is that Robbie Davis Jr., he was ranked not only in the WBA, but he was also ranked in the IBF as a number 14. And for anybody that knows, usually the WBA, they have 2 titles. One is the super and one is the regular, where the super, you basically don't have to defend against your mandatory. And the regular does. It comes to a point where you're like, well, who's the real champion? Whereas with the IBF, they just have 1 title. They don't have these shenanigans of interim, silver, diamond, franchise, or super duper, or whatever. IBF is the IBF. So although he's ranked number 14 in the IBF, he will eventually get a title shot if he chooses to, and he will be champion. Now, that being said, I'm pretty sure after this victory, he has moved up in both of those rankings. And considering they're both Lewis Ritson and Robbie Davis Jr., they both belong to the 140-pound weight class, and they are from the UK. I'm pretty sure that fight is going to probably come up next.
So they should be facing each other soon to see how they do in the rankings, right?
Yeah.
So the next fight card we mentioned to you was coming from Las Vegas, also on Friday, and he had 5 bouts. What can you tell us about this fight card, Jay?
The results for this one, I basically said just to focus on Eva Wallstrom versus Ronica Jeffrey. Ronica Jeffrey from over here in Queens, New York, versus Eva Wallstrom. Everybody thought that Eva Wallstrom was gonna pull off the victory, but Ronica Jeffrey fought back, and it was considered a draw. So I see a rematch coming in the future. Congratulations to both ladies for showcasing a really good fight.
Great, that's awesome. I'm excited about that rematch coming up again, and I'm really happy that Ronica Jeffrey basically pulled an upset by not losing, right? Because she was suspected, she was the non-favorite, what's the opposite of favorite? She was the underdog. She was like a big underdog for this fight. So the fact that she pulled out with a draw is a big victory for her. So go Ronica Jeffrey. Now our next fight card comes from Tokyo, Japan, and he had 7 bouts. Jay told us to focus on 2 in the co-main events. The first one being at 154 pounds, Takeshi Inoue versus Komsan Polsan. What can you tell us about this bout, Jay?
Well, unfortunately, I couldn't see these bouts, but I did see. All right, I'm gonna talk about the 154-pound one first. I didn't see either of the bouts, so I will just let you know what the results are. So Takeshi Inoue, he knocks out Komsan Polsan in the second round. He's ranked number 11 on WBO, so he's gonna eventually move up the rankings where Jaime Munguia is the champion. At 160 pounds, Kazuto Kasetako versus Shuji Kato. Now, I want to talk about this fight because I searched the entire internet. I tried to see the fight, and the only fight I got to see was basically their first fight. So this is a rematch. That first fight was a barn burner. It was a fantastic, fantastic fight, and I was really upset that I couldn't get to see the rematch. Going into this fight, Kazuto was 10-0. Kato was basically 10-1. They have very similar records. At the end, the first fight was considered a draw. Kazuto Takesako had a perfect record of 10-0, and Shuji Kato had a really good record of 10-1, and they basically drew in the last fight. But I'm telling you, that first fight was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Fantastic fight. But at the end of the day, Kazuto Takesako, he gets a TKO victory. Shuji Kato basically didn't come out of the corner for the 8th round. So after the 8th round, he basically, I don't know if it was his trainer or he decided not to go on anymore, or the ref decided to stop the fight, or the doctors. I don't know, because unfortunately I didn't get to see it. I just know that he didn't come out of the 8th round.
You know, those trilogies and those fights that they go back and forth and fight more than once are very good when the boxers create rivalries and they fight like trilogies, or in this case they could fight up to 4 fights because they have a draw. So our next fight card comes from Belfast, Northern Ireland, and he had 11 bouts. In this fight card, you told us to focus on 3. Can you tell us more about these results?
Last time when I was looking up this bout, I saw Paddy Gallagher as the favorite, but then in the fight, Chris Jenkins proved otherwise. Chris Jenkins pulled the upset. He won a close unanimous decision. At 160 pounds, Luke Keeler pulled a big upset versus Luis Cubas Arias. Everybody knows from last time I mentioned, Luke Keeler is an upcoming sensational boxer. He was ranked number 13 for the IBF and number 5 in the WBO. Luis Arias Luis Cubas Arias was ranked number 8 on the WBC. When we saw the first round, Luke Keeler knocked down Arias. Arias was just all over the place. He didn't have his feet under him. Luke Keeler kept pushing the action. He kept pressing. And I felt like towards the middle, Arias just gassed out. He just completely gassed out.
He got tired very, very early in the fight for me. He wasn't the Arias that I've seen before in previous fights, even though I haven't seen him fight in years. I don't remember when was the last time I saw him fight. Maybe could have been 3 years ago the last time I saw an Arias fight. But that then again, I don't watch as much boxing as Jay does, so it could be that could be the reason. But he wasn't the same Arias I'm used to seeing. So to me, it was an upset. Keeler definitely dominated the action.
Luis Cubas Arias has fought 3 times. The first time for the last 3 years was against Daniel Jacobs, which he basically lost. And then after that, a year later, he fought Gabriel Rosado, and he got a draw. Basically, you can say you can basically make an argument coming off a loss and a draw and inactivity. It's probably justified why he gassed out. At the end of the day, I didn't think he was going to gas out. I believed Luis Arias was going to pull it off because he's the guy with more experience, the guy with the better record, the guy coming off a headlining fight against Daniel Jacobs. So so he has experience at that top level. No excuses.
But who knows, Jay? Maybe that loss was what caused Arias to take this route in his career because after losing, he's had a draw, then another loss. So he hasn't, and he has been inactive. So maybe that affected him more than we're giving credit to. So can you tell us more about the last fight that you told us to look out for? It was at 126 pounds, Michael Conlan versus Diego Alberto Ruiz.
Well, Michael Conlan, he's an undefeated fighter. Last time he was 11-0. He's ranked number 6 in the WBA, number 12 in the IBF, and number 5 in the WBO. And he basically knocked out Diego Alberto Ruiz in the ninth round. It wasn't a TKO. It was just a straight up knockout. So he can basically be in line to face any of the champions at featherweight right now.
So he has a lot of power, Conlan. Now, the next fight card that we're going to review comes from Brooklyn, New York, our hometown, NYC. That fight card was a little bit
It was drama up and down.
up and down because between the changes in the bouts, between the adding fights and cancellation of fights, we didn't know what was going to happen. But tell us about the fight card, Jay.
Well, it started off with Curtis Stevens. I mentioned last time he went down from 160 pounds to 154, campaigning at a weight class where it's accurate for his size. And Curtis Stevens was the favorite coming into this fight. This fight proved that Curtis Stevens, his best years are really behind him. Wael Omitoso knocked him down in each of the first 3 rounds, and then the ref just saw enough, and he was just like, "You just can't continue, man. You're embarrassing yourself." I'm sorry to say it that way. I was rooting for Stevens. He's from New York, so I'm rooting for the guy from New York. Wael Omitoso came in there. He didn't let up. One thing about Stevens is that he still does have that power and that speed. The problem with Stevens is that I think he's chinny. He's always been chinny. I think Gennady Golovkin proved that when he faced him a long time ago, but I guess we didn't know how chinny he was. Wael Omitoso wasn't even landing really concussive shots. Like the first one was like a graze, and he knocked him down. The second one was a hard shot, and then the last one, Stevens was pulling away, and Omitoso came in with a straight right and basically just tapped him. But because of the momentum, he was going backwards. He just fell back, and he fell within the ropes. I believe he could have continued, but the ref just decided to stop it. And after 3 knockdowns in each of the rounds, I mean, who could blame him?
No, it's true. And especially with all the stoppages, that wasn't bad. Now, can you tell us more about the fight between Kowalski and Arreola? I was really looking forward to this match.
Well, that's the main event. It's the headliner. So I'm gonna skip it and go to Marcus Brown because no, you know what? Let's do Adam Kownacki first. So Adam Kownacki versus Chris Arreola. We all believe that Chris Arreola was over the hill. We all believe that Chris Arreola This was going to be his last fight. He actually said it that after this fight he was going to retire. Everybody believed Kownacki had like 14 straight knockouts or 15, something like that, and this is going to be his 16th knockout. And considering Deontay Wilder dispatched Arreola in similar fashion, everybody's like, "Oh, Kownacki has power, so he's undefeated. He's the up and coming fighter. He's gonna take out Arreola." But surprisingly, Chris Arreola gave the best performance I have seen him do in a really, 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 really long time. He impressed me a lot. They went the distance. It was a really close fight, unlike the refs would have you believe. I believe Chris Arreola, out of the 12 rounds, I think he won 5 of them. I think Kownacki won 7 rounds, so Kownacki does deserve the victory, in my opinion. Nevertheless, Chris Arreola put up a really, really good fight. It was back and forth action. For the first half of the fight, Kownacki was pushing back Arreola, and Arreola got the second win. He found out how to neutralize Kownacki by smothering his punches and pushing him back, and basically hitting him with shorter, crisper punches while pushing Kownacki back. Because the moment I think he realized that as Kownacki moved forward, he had leverage on his punches, but moving back, he doesn't have so much, and that's what brought him back into the fight.
I'm gonna say that I didn't think that Chris Arreola should say that he would retire if he lost this fight, because he was facing an undefeated fighter who had 19 wins, 15 knockouts, who had a lot of power. And the fact that he was able to go toe to toe, go the distance with him, just proves that I was right. He should not retire based on this fight. As I said, he's one of my favorite fighters, and he showed the heart that he has. Even though he lost, I think he gave a great performance, and I look forward to seeing him fight again.
To finalize with this fight, Adam Kownacki, he was ranked number 4 in the IBF, number 6 in the WBC, and number 7 in the WBA. I'm pretty certain he's probably going to be ranked number 1 or number 2. No, number 2, number 3 in each of these sanctioning bodies. I do not believe he's ready for Deontay Wilder. I give him, and he said it himself. He needs to work on a couple of things. He needs to improve on a couple of things. And hopefully next year, he will get a title shot. And I believe he should take 3 or 4 more opponents to work out these kinks and to improve. Let's just say a perfect world, an imaginary world, Andy Ruiz beats Anthony Joshua again. And depending on what happens with Wilder or Usyk, whoever he's facing next, if there's no unification for Undisputed, Adam Kownacki has to choose which champion to fight. I would suggest him to go for Andy Ruiz, because Deontay Wilder will knock him out. Well, now Marcus Brown. Marcus Brown from Staten Island versus Jean Pascal. Marcus Brown is the interim WBA champion at light heavyweight, and he's also the silver champion, which means he's the mandatory for the WBC. Marcus Brown, he had crisp punches, the stronger punches. He had the speed, the reach, the height. He had everything over Jean Pascal. But for some reason, I don't know what happened with him, but kind of like Curtis Stevens, kind of chinny. And Jean Pascal hit him with a flash knockdown. I don't recall if this has been Marcus Brown's first knockdown, but instead of him staying down and taking the count to, rest or recover a little bit, he popped right back up. Like, he tried to just bounce off the canvas and come back up, and I think that did him more harm than anything else. So I guess he felt urgent. I'm saying this is what I think was going through his mind. I don't know what was going through his mind, but me putting myself in his shoes, I think he felt like, oh my God, I'm behind. I'm in my hometown. I'm undefeated. I'm fighting up this quote unquote supposedly washed up fighter, and Jean Pascal, whose best years are behind him. Although Jean Pascal was I think a 2-time light heavyweight champion. The WBC title. It's been a while. And Jean Pascal, I mean, he's been losing. So here comes Marcus Brown. He gets knocked down. Now he's behind. He's coming forward. Now, this is the thing that kills me. Before the fight was stopped, because the fight was stopped, Marcus Brown was winning every single round except the rounds he got knocked down in. Except those rounds, Marcus Brown was winning all of them. So I think he got knocked down 3 times, if I recall correctly. And then in the 6th round, Jean Pascal, obviously because Marcus Brown has the reach and the height on him, he had to fight on the inside. By fighting on the inside, they did a clash of heads. Jean Pascal got a hematoma above his left eyebrow, but Marcus Brown got a terrible, terrible, terrible cut above his eye, which did not allow him to see and forced the fight to be stopped and go to the scorecards. Because he got knocked down 3 times, Jean Pascal pulled off the upset. They had him winning by 1 point. It's fine by me. I could have seen it as a draw as well, but that's what happened. So that's definitely a rematch. That's a rematch in the making. I don't know if Jean Pascal, now that he has the interim title in the WBA and now he's the mandatory for the WBC, I don't know if he's going to try to pull some weight and take this back to Canada how he used to when he used to be the superstar. He used to be the headliner. If that's the case, that's the case. I mean, you got beat. Now you have to go where the champion is. And now the extra bonus fight.
So tell us about it, the bonus fight for the IBF Strawweight Women's Championship.
Well, in this one, it was from Spain, and we have Joanna Pastrana versus Yocasta Valle. Pastrana, who is the hometown favorite from Spain, and the champion, was against, what was she? Costa Rica, right? The Costarricense, Yocasta Valle. And that was a great fight back and forth. I believe that I don't know if it's a thing in Europe. I don't know what it is. But the commentators, they had it as a close fight. And towards the middle rounds, they actually had Joanna Pastrana up. In the 6th, I think in the 7th round, they had Joanna Pastrana up 4-2, which is completely not what happened.
And I clearly one-sided towards Valle. They were making it seem like Pastrana was up. It was crazy. However, at the end, the judges were not crazy, and Valle came out with the win.
And this goes back to a point that you were going to mention earlier with the Luis Cubas Arias, which you forgot to mention.
Oh my goodness, that was crazy.
I've never seen this before in my life.
I've never seen this before in my life.
Must be a European thing.
In Europe, the referee scores fights.
Yeah, so you not only ref the fight, you also judge the fight.
I thought there was something wrong at first because we saw the results of the Arias fights before we saw the fight. Mm-hmm. So when we saw the results, it actually only said like one score. So we were like, Arias got rocked. Or something's wrong with this fight. These numbers don't add up. Then we see the fight and we got to see that there's only one score because the ref is the one giving the score. It doesn't make any sense. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, we're used to having the judges on the outside and the ref controlling the fight. We've never encountered the ref controlling and judging the fight at the same time.
Well, he's the judge and the executioner. That doesn't make any
jury and execution.
Exactly. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. How can he be the action and be able to dictate the different angles that the refs get to see? You know, I mean, the judges get to see. They see the fight from different angles, and that's when we get different scores. This guy has a one-sided view. Sometimes he misses action. You know, it was just something unexpected for me, and it's something that took me off I was like, what's going on
Not only that, but for example, in the Luis Cubas Arias fight, the final score was 96-91. And I didn't quite understand that score because out of a 10-round fight, someone scores 96, the other one should have 94. But, you know, Luis Cubas Arias did get dropped 2 times. But I don't understand why he lost the other 2 pounds. In fact, actually, he deducted a point from Luke Keeler.
He deducted a point from Keeler.
So, no, hit him behind the head. He hit him behind the head.
Yes, but nonetheless, it didn't make sense. The score did not make sense. It did not make sense to me. It doesn't make sense that the ref, even if you only have one judge, to me, it doesn't make sense that the ref is the one keeping score. And through the fight, they give you updates of what the score is because the ref is telling them, oh, this one got this round is 10-8 or whatever the score is, and then they keep tally of it. So there's no surprise at the end either. It's like very I like the transparency, but also biased. The referee has all the power, and that makes for bad boxing.
Yeah, but then again, that's how they do things over there. I've never encountered anything like that over here in the States. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe that's how
Common
things should.
practice,
Yeah, maybe
you
that's how
know,
things should be. One person controlling everything, and that way you don't have any draws. I don't know,
you
any crazy
still you
results.
still
I
have
don't
draws
know.
because you know how in Canada they score and they telling you
Oh,
can
I
still have
actually,
a draw.
yeah.
You can still have a draw if the referee, because the referee has to report their score after every round, and somehow, some way, the math can
The
end
judges,
up being
the
no, the
judges.
ref
Oh, in the
in the
UK,
UK.
in Europe,
In
actually,
Europe, they
that was the
have to
same case for
report.
the.
They
Yeah.
have to report the fight, the score at the end of each round. So for some reason, it can't come out of that. But it's just, to me,
It's
it's
weird.
just ridiculous. It's weird, and it doesn't make sense that one person can have so much power. Anyway, but congratulations to Jocasta Valle for
For becoming the
for
champion.
becoming the champion and for bringing the title back to this side of the hemisphere, this side of the world, anyway, to this hemisphere. Well, if you like our show and want to see what fights we recommend to watch out for next week, remember to tune in to Boxing Weekly. Remember to subscribe, and if you like this video, press the like button. If you want to hear an analysis on a specific fight, our opinion on a specific fighter, or you have any questions, just remember to comment below. This was Boxing Review, brought to you by Boxing Digest. I'm YC.
And I'm Nice.
Until next time.